I was fortunate enough to get in my first game of 10th. It was an 1,000-point game pitting my Thousand Sons against the Tyranid. It was interesting, as we both were returning players from a prior edition, trying to wade back into the grim darkness of the far future. The overall match was as intense as I remember them being. My mind was still set alight for days after, and I'm still churning through everything I missed or possibly messed up during the match. All the weak points in my approach to Big 40k, all the elements I need to iron out, and there are many. But this also gives me my first look at the Thousand Sons in action. Units I didn't think would work the way that they did. Actions I didn't fully get before seeing the stacking possibilities of them. Also, my first look at just how ineffective I am with using my knights, but that's on me. Now, I'm not saying this one game has given me revelation about all facets that the Dusty Ghost Golems have to offer, but it certainly gave me some great perspective on many possible directions the team can take. Before we get into that, as always, this is YouTube, and if you are interested in tabletop content currently focusing a bit on the 40k universes of Kill Team as well as its bigger sibling, and haven't already subscribed, I don't know, maybe tap the little button down there or something? Maybe the like if you're interested. That being said, let's get into it. So the game ended up being 5 full turns. I managed to finally table the tenacious Nids by finishing off the old One-Eye and his Carnifex guard with the MVP of the whole ordeal, the Thousand Sons Winged Demon Prince. I was interested when coming back to try and craft a more mobile type of Thousand Sons team, and the Aether Stride ability was very attractive. Good thing I built this guy with wings. As my opponent didn't have a lot of long range on the field, I was able to hide this unit behind some more horrifying prospects, allowing it to stand still until the end of my opponent's first turn, triggering the effect. Looking around, we notice that Demon Princes tend to differ army to army. Aether Stride seems unique to Thousand Sons at the cost of being one of the few winged princes that don't come with Deep Strike built in. For me, this unit ended up being a prime candidate for the Arcane Vortex enhancement, and that feeling worked out immensely against the tough-as-nails monsters it dispatched along its wake. A cluster of Venomthropes, a Neurotyrant represented by a bit of an older model, good to see some of the classics, and as stated, an old One-Eye as well as one Carnifex, all with very little damage taken, thanks to the Destined by Fate stratagem, along with a solid 4+ invulnerable save tied in with the Weaver of Fate's ritual, allowing for a save reroll. This turned the Demon Prince into a highly durable, extremely mobile, and devastatingly powerful monster in melee. Tack on that its blade is psychic and will gain further benefits from the only cult we have access to, like lethal hits, sustained hits, or devastating wounds. This idea, this function became the quintessential approach to how a live match seems to work. A deceptively intricate web of stacking effects and possibilities, all stretched out across itself. Every action potentially bringing more consequence to the table than may be seen on a surface level. I did say Aether Stride is great and it served me well, but it also negates 2 Cabal points for the next player turn if it is used. At least that is how I understand it. Abilities seem to be usable from reserve, but Cabal points require the unit to be on the field in the command phase. Choosing lethal hits to reinforce his highest attack output strike is great, but the Thousand Sons Sorcerer-led Rubric squad already has lethal hits, and won't really see much benefit from it if they use the Ensorcelled Infusion stratagem, giving all their Inferno Bolt guns psychic. Now this isn't a complaint, I actually really like this. There is a good level of depth here in choosing what you need to build this web. My Tyranid opponent stumbled on something similar, it seemed, with his Nids. Stacking aura effects of stealth and other boons made the meager Gaunts able to survive some initial onslaughts. This is where I think 10th edition will shine for me, setting out to build a list that hones in on 1 or 2 elements of the overarching game and trying to fit units in that will fill roles that either add to or benefit from those functions. That doesn't mean there aren't units that represent the hammer and nail concept, like the Mutalith Vortex Beast, in my opinion, a unit that shares in the MVP position for this match, and I will most likely be picking up another one down the road. A consensus seems to be forming around the initial meta, if we could call it that, of 10th. Indirect long-range fire will be high tier, anti-armor will be desperately needed in most lists. Torrent weapons are incredibly strong with the Fire Overwatch stratagem. If the Thousand Suns could have a unit that touches on a few of these in an arguably affordable points package, the Vortex Beast would be it. The reason my Demon Prince only had to contend with one of the two Carnifex Bodyguard is because a single shot, strength 18, AP -4, D6 +6 devastating wounds attack falls in the twice or more category of strength versus Carnifex toughness, allowing it to roll a 2 to wound and sending the now 6+ armor save Nid to the Nether Realm. The reason my front line didn't have to worry about the encroaching horde of Gaunts was the 2d6 Torrent attack you can choose for the Overwatch. Hell, just moving this unit up started to cause mortal wounds to be spread everywhere. I was so entranced by this that I forgot that all enemies within 6 inch of the mutating Vortex aura have to also take Battle Shock tests. This unit sees no benefit from current Thousand Suns functions, but it doesn't need them. It even provides better range for the rituals to nearby Psykers. Had I not rolled so poorly against Old One Eye and his last guard, this unit would have easily handled most of the Tyranid forces on its own. And there is now value in having more than one of these, since they don't negatively impact each other. Having said that, I do expect Games Workshop to act quickly and efficiently at honing in such an incredible force of nature. I await the disappointment. The rest of the units were spread through a small rubric squad with a sorcerer, preventing them from being shot at outside of 18 inches and providing lethal hits, an amazing conceptual counter to the idea of long-range indirect fire. 2 10-man Zangor squads. Honestly, the cheapness of these allowed me to confidently add so many large units in the form of the Demon Prince, the Vortex Beast, as well as 2 allied knights, which again, outside of being fodder for the Carnifexes to kill, ended up not doing a lot. Still feel like that one is on me. But allies like these brought up an interesting idea. They are unable to receive any benefits from their detachment. They don't have access to my stratagems or even their own. The sacrifices that came with using allies ended up feeling more rough than I expected. Those 2 knights could have been a larger rubric squad with an Infernal Master or something. More Cabal points, allowing me access to Doombolt more efficiently, or just preloading all rounds where I receive damage with a cheap armor save roll. I really feel like sticking to mono Thousand Suns may be one of the only options to maximize any list potential. Maybe as more of the meta gets revealed, things like taking 1 Knight Tyrant to backline screen might feel more necessary, but still, it would force you not to take something that plays off all the Psyker heavy effects that really let the Thousand Suns shine. On top of all these other elements, I also managed to fit in a Chaos Spawn squad. This one got caught out on the side with the Old One Eye, and in the game of Rock Paper Carnifex, they actually managed to stall the beasts for a round. They didn't do much else, but there was a cheapness to them that made their survivability actually worthwhile. These did make me think on the idea of winners and losers of the changeover to 10th though for the Thousand Suns. You see, Chaos Spawn used to come in groups of up to 5. This would mean there were more wounds to get through, more durability to have to handle. It wasn't fun trying to procure 5 total Chaos Spawn as they came in packs of 2, but the forced limit of 2 definitely gave them less survivable potential. Outside of the units I used for this match, there are more. Ahriman on a Disc of Tzeentch. The first Ahriman that I built and probably should have magnetized only really gains 1 wound and a little move speed, but you would still want him to lead a squad for the wound roll enhancement. You can only lead Rubric Marines, so the disc speed is rendered mostly useless. As well, the fact that he is on a disc at all provides the enemy with the ability to use anti-fly guns on a very slow-moving pack of Rubric Marines to gain the benefit. If you haven't looked, a lot of the anti-fly benefits tend to be 2+ to crit on wounds. This is why I have an on-foot Ahriman in my to-be-worked-on pile. The same issue comes from the Exalted Sorcerer on a disc as well. Although he has a unique function, most leaders don't gain the benefit they provide unless they are part of a squad, but both Exalted Sorcerer models give 4+ invulnerables while having a 4+ invulnerable already. Arguably, this could make it alright to have an Exalted Sorcerer on a disc, moving around on its own, slowing enemies down everywhere it goes. Probably the worst adjustment for me specifically with my limited knowledge of 9th is the Infernal Master. It came from a place of larger scale function, big abilities that had great impact on the flow of the game, wild levels of magic from what was a fairly cheap HQ option. Now it exists as a sort of conundrum. Most leader units come with leader abilities that are just that, benefits. Benefits that are just as viable on them as they are on the unit they join. The Infernal Master benefits limits it to the Rubric squad of Bolter wielders, not unlike the Sorcerer unit, but the Sorcerer's leader ability helps its psychic attack greatly. The Infernal Master's psychic ability is wholly unaffected by its own leader ability. On top of that, its personal ability doesn't really help in most situations. I would have hoped that it would have interacted with something like the Doombolt ritual, but the initial check seems to be its own thing. It may still interact with the D3 damage roll, however. Hell, its Screamer Invocation attack number check can't even be adjusted by the forced 6 roll. As your bodyguards start to take wounds, you can't even confer the 6+ save to them. The only benefit this unit provides are the 2 Cabal points for as cheap as it costs. It could be argued that the value in these is to take them on their own, outside of a bodyguard unit, and just hope the enemy is uninterested in wasting shots at them. If they gave it lone operative, as they did in the combat patrol, I could see the value here, less of a squad lead and more of an annoyance that generates Cabal points. But that possible change will be for time to reveal. Outside of these, most of the rest of the units seem to be either just as good or they won the lottery. Zangors, as stated, are really cheap and not bad for holding and screening backlines with chances to gain Cabal points. Zangor Shaman can take up spots in Zangor Enlightened units. That combo is actually amazing, as the precision on the Enlightened Greatbow is deceptively good when tied in with the high mobility. The Shaman provide benefits to hit as well as a 5+ feel no pain. The Enlightened provide the Shaman a solid defensive unit ability. This combo is an overall perfect match. That's why I added 2 Shaman to my to-do list. The Terminator Sorcerer Lord and Scarab Occult Terminator combo is even more flawlessly designed for maximum potential. A horrifying anti-tank, anti-monster psychic attack, lethal hits all around, a targetable reroll for hits of 1 for all Thousand Sun models, conferring extreme durability against elite crushing weaponry, slap the ensorcelled infusion ploy on them with either devastating wounds or sustained hits from the Cult of Magic, maybe even the devastating sorcery ploy for all rerolls, or even Warp Sight for the indirect and ignore cover, or maybe you need more range, so Sorceress Might could help. The combos for the deep striking Terminators with a Sorcerer Lord are incredible. Tack on an Umbralific Crystal for the re-deep strike effect. Chef's kiss. Beyond these infantry units, the vehicles mostly fill the roles you would expect and don't add much beyond that. Transport Rhinos, Land Raiders, Defilers, every Predator variant, the Vindicator. There isn't a lot of comboing that comes out of these, they are simply what they are. The Mauler and Forge Fiend have useful walker abilities and can make for some good anti-tank at a cheaper cost than the Vortex Beast, but not by much. The 3 Ectoplasma cannons can have a bit more potential though. The Hellbrutes, however, are an interesting adaptation. The old Hellbrutes were fairly basic, but benefited from the 5-up Invulnerable of the Thousand Suns. These new ones carry the same benefit, but also work to assist in the Cabal rituals, refunding a Cabal point each time a nearby ally uses the ritual. A sneaky bonus comes in the form of the Inferno Combi Bolter and the Twin Inferno Heavy Bolter, slight buffs to an underused option. Also, as some people have noticed, Hellbrute hammers are 14 strength. Good at fending off monsters, but when tied to the Tank Shock ploy, for most of the average foot soldiers this tank will come up against, you can have 16 chances to land the total 6 mortal wounds that the ploy offers. Hellbrutes existing as both weapon batteries and rearguard while helping your psychers maintain their rituals. I see them as integral in any large list, especially now that any variant you want costs the flat 145 points. Maybe some tank-destroying brawler with a multi-melta and a hammer might interest you, or some long-range las cannon and missile launcher. Maybe 2 fists with 2 heavy flamers for the Overwatch ploy. I have 3 and I think they'll get some use. Might even need more since I only magnetized the 1. Now, for the big one. He did no wrong and yet the meta saw fit to forsake him. The Crimson King himself, Magnus. Coming in at a whopping 410 points. The cost of 1 Exalted Sorcerer and 3 regulars with some change left over. Did they do this Primarch justice? Not even from a lore perspective, I don't care about that as much. The balance though, the value in choosing this to build your list around, I think they just maybe did. Now I'm not saying to bring a Magnus list to a 1,000 point tournament, although maybe it could work, but at large scale, 2,000, even 3,000 point games, with enough things on the field to give your opponent too many hard targets, the damage potential on Magnus is incredible. Everything he has is psychic, so it's not only affected by the cult abilities, but also by many of the stratagems. Can't see your target? Give all the ranged spells indirect and ignores cover. Maybe toss on full rerolls on hits and wounds as well. Deep strike him into the thick of it under the Treason of Tzeentch rule and set up a squad for hazardous rolls when the time is right. Every ability to his name holds great purpose and can be adapted well using the cult rules for when you need things like lethal hits or sustained hits. He comes with devastating wounds on enough functions to not exactly need that. I feel like he certainly brings his value to the field for most potentials. Of course, he is just one unit, so holding multiple objectives won't be his thing, and to many, having more units on the field tends to arguably be more important. Certainly find your path here. I can't wait to play a large-scale battle where I feel Magnus's presence will truly be helpful. All in all, the first game back, the first time matchup since the launch of 10th, I can't wait to explore more possibilities. This has reinvigorated me in my love of list building. I already know units I need to look into adding to my overall roster. I can already hear my wallet sobbing. My main hope is that as time marches on, the Thousand Sons, as well as many other factions, get the split sub-faction function that currently only the Space Marines are experiencing. The tales I've heard of how adaptable and focused some of the different armies could be seems to be partially washed away in this current state. There is some element of that. As with the Thousand Sons and their allies alone, I've already determined some possible functional and worthwhile lists that embody different ideas that seem usable in general play. I will continue to press on, and hopefully a buddy I am talking to will be able to help me bring you all some Combat Patrol battle reports soon. A little Black Templar on Thousand Sons action, the Anti-Psyker versus the Everything Psyker. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have any of you gotten to experience a game of 10th yet? If so, let us know in the comments below. Shortly before the recording of this, Combat Patrol rules were dropped. Maybe you got a game in of that. From what I've seen, it feels a bit different than you'd expect. What factions are you thinking of playing? What playstyle are you thinking of focusing on? Let us know. And if you're interested, there is a link to our community Discord in the description below, where you can hang out, talk rules, and regale us with your tales of victory or even defeat, as there is always something to learn from that. As always, likes for the like god and subscribes for the subscribe throne. I am Kimmerix, and I'll see you in the next one.